안녕하십니까.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's so pleased to see you. International Conference on the Earth Jurisprudence 2023. Thank you very much for coming here today. I am Kim Bomi, who is working for the Pro Bono Center Sun, and I'm an attorney. People for Earth has invited the experts about the Earth jurisprudence, and this has been hosted by the Pro Bono Sun and the Law Partners 1, and the People for Earth are co-hosting this event celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Sun Pro Bono Center. And as you may understand, Pro Bono Center Sun has been working with the People for Earth starting from 2015, and we have been providing the credit system that has been recognized by the Korean Bar Association, and we have been providing the lecture for the Earth Jurisprudence. We're providing simultaneous interpretation for English and the Korean, Channel 1 for Korean and Channel 2 for English. And you can tune into the preferred language you'd like to listen to. After the conference, please leave the receiver on your table. And we have 2 days of the conference on the 17th and the 18th of the November on the day 1. We're gonna have the discussion under the topic of the Earth jurisprudence more than human. We're gonna talk about the jurisprudence for the lawyers, Earth system governance and the law, and also we're gonna have the research trends and the visions about the Earth jurisprudence. We're gonna share our wisdom together on day 1 throughout the 3 sessions. On day 2, which is tomorrow, we're gonna focus on the education and art for Earth. There will be a roundtable, and also there will be a short film preview, a story of the 2 women. Before we start the conference, I'd like to ask for your understanding. Our keynote speaker was Maria Mercedes Sánchez. However, her father passed away, and that is why she was not able to make it here today. And I'd like to deliver condolences to her and to her family. And also, I would like to ask for your understanding due to unexpected event, and there was a change in our schedule. We would like to deliver our sincere sorry to you, and I would like to ask for your understanding. And before we start the event, I would like to invite the managing partner Yoon of the One Law Partners. Please welcome managing partner Yoon with big hands. Morning, I'm Yoon, attorney at the One Law Partners. Welcome to the Earth Jurisprudence at More Than Human Conference, commemorating the 10th anniversary of the Sun Pro Bono Center. This is the 10th anniversary, so we wanted to celebrate this event along with many people. Usually, when you have the 10th anniversary, and there is a huge ceremony, usually we eat together and we look back on the past. That's how we usually celebrate the 10th anniversary in Korea. However, considering the activities of the Pro Bono Sun, we have been focusing pretty much on climate change and the Earth jurisprudence. That are the core areas. So that is why we wanted to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Pro Bono Sun in a different way, to think more about the Earth and what are the key challenges that human being is now facing. I mean, the climate change. We should think more about the climate change and the urgent task that we are facing all together. That is why we are hosting this event. First of all, I would like to thank all the people who are gathered here today. Thank you very much for your presence, especially the Academic Society of the Earth Jurisprudence and the Pro Bono Sun are now hosting this event. Thank you very much for your presence and welcome all of you. According to a report, And I'm not the expert. This year was the hottest year since the last interglacial period, about 125,000 years ago. The global temperature continues to rise, as you may understand, and there are extreme weather events like droughts, typhoons, and heavy rains, and those extreme weather events continue to rise these days. The climate crisis becomes more serious, and we can feel the limitations of the existing legal system. Now we are more interested in jurisprudence or the Earth Jurisprudence, which is a new approach on the law and governance that seeks after the well-being and the prosperity of the entire global community beyond the human community. And probably the Earth Jurisprudence might be unfamiliar term to many of you. Of course, there are experts who are gathered here today, but we are at our infancy about studying the Earth Jurisprudence. However, more and more people have interest about this new discipline, the Earth Jurisprudence. Sun Pro Bono Center was established in 2013, and we have been following after the value for the social values, and we have contributed a lot to our society, especially to promote the human rights. And there are around 10 law firms working for the public goods, and we are the only one that has carried out various public interest activities in the ecological and environmental fields. For example, we actively supported the judicial constitutional appeals of the youth related to climate crisis and constitutional appeals to call for climate disclosure and the climate response activities of the youth activities. The Sun Pro Bono Center has actively participated in activities to introduce and publicize the Earth Jurisprudence to lawyers. And now many people who study law can understand the concept of the Earth Jurisprudence. Since 2015, together with the People for Earth Foundation, we have been holding the Earth Jurisprudence lecture for the lawyers every year as a training program recognized by the Korean Bar Association. We are very pleased to hosting this international conference today with the Academic Society of the Earth Jurisprudence. The Sun Pro Bono Center operates the Earth Jurisprudence courses and has continued to have close exchanges with the executives and the staff of the People for Earth and the Society of the Earth Jurisprudence. Thank you very much for your close cooperation. This conference will be a valuable opportunity to look back on the achievement of the Earth Jurisprudence Education Project and the public pro bono project we had. And for the experts from around the world who are interested in the governance and the Earth system theories together, so we can have a more interaction and we can share the knowledge. We'd like to express our sincere gratitude to everyone who attended the conference, both on-site and online, and hope you have a really meaningful time throughout this conference. Thank you. Thank you very much. Managing Partner Yoon, thank you very much. And I hope that the People for Earth, the Pro Bono Sun, and the Society of the Earth Jurisprudence can work together to build a better world. Next, I would like to invite the President Kim Sang-yeop, who is the Commissioner for the Carbon Neutrality and Green Growth. I would like to invite President Kim Sang-yeop to the stage. I'm Kim Sang-yeop. Actually, I came here to study, and I didn't expect that I'm gonna stand on the stage. But anyway, thank you very much. Minister Kang. I met Minister Kang in the Sustainable World Forum just a few years ago, which was hosted in Pyeongchang, and I had some interaction with Minister Kang. And also, I do understand the passion and the commitment of the people for Earth. And taking this opportunity, I would like to deliver my sincere respect to Minister Kang and people for Earth. And I got the book that has been published by the Society of Earth Jurisprudence, and I would like to deliver my sincere appreciation and respect to all the scholars, including Professor Kim Wang-bae. Thank you very much. Professor An, he's been a mentor to me, and he was invited to the EU, and he got lots of interest from the public. When I was working for the broadcasting company, and we had a report to cover the future of the Earth. In 2004, the topic was aging society. The aging society will have a significant impact on the future of the Korean society. That was the first report that I had in 2004. Now, many people were concerned about the aging society. However, Minister Kim Gun-tae back then watched our program and he took action. He met with the president, and the population strategy and population policy was changed in Korea, and that is how we came up with the Presidential Committee on the Aging Society. However, aging society is a significant issue. The governance structure was really weak to tackle the aging society back then. The demographic change can be a huge challenge. In that case, we should have a really good governance. However, at that time, the Ministry of the Welfare was just taking care of that issue from the department level, not on the ministerial level. But for me, the climate change is a bigger issue. It is a much bigger challenge than the aging society because when the climate change is taking place, we cannot live on the earth. Aging society is something that you can deal with, but if there are some extreme weather conditions, we cannot live on the earth. That means we should have a bigger governance and well-established governance. However, the climate governance is not that strong, even though the importance of the climate change is really huge. And to quote Professor An, we have a long-term challenge, and we should not have a short-term solutions. That is the asymmetry of the governance. That should be something that we should avoid. Climate change is critical. If we have the asymmetrical governance, we do not have the resources, we do not have the means to tackle this huge challenge. If we really value and if we really think climate change is really important, the governance structure should be strong enough. And as a commissioner of the carbon neutrality, I feel that we should have a stronger governance to tackle climate change. In 2009, there was a summit meeting, and I have been visiting the COP every year. This year, and I attended the COP28 as well this year. As a regular attendee, yes, there have been some achievements like a Paris Agreement. More than 200 countries had a discussion and went through negotiation. However, things didn't get better enough. As managing partner Yoon pointed out, this is the 10th anniversary of the Sun Pro Bono Center. According to IPCC, internally within the IPCC, well, 1.5 degree scenario is almost gone, and many people are skeptical about 1.5 degree scenario within the IPCC. By 2040, we will go beyond 1.5, and after that, it's gonna go even higher, possibly 2.6, 3.2. We do not know. Even though we make our very best at the end of this century, probably we can make a U-turn to 1.5 degree at the end of this century. So that means the situation is really dire and serious. This is unprecedented. However, the intergovernmental relations, the intergovernmental solution is something we really need. However, as I told you, the outcome is below our expectation. This is a serious issue. The US and China have geopolitical issues. However, even under the conflict, they agreed on some agenda. One is climate change. They are going to have the cooperation on climate change. That's a good news. However, when you take a look at the news, actually, I have a little bit of the skepticism about it. We talked about scale up, speed up, and we have the Green Big Bang Summit. John Kerry, special advisor from the US, sent us the message about that summit. Of course, the key message is to triple the amount of the renewable energy sources just within 8 years. And we should ban any coal power generation, any new coal power generation. However, considering the situation in China and India, yes, they don't agree with the ban against the new coal power plants. Whenever we have the national level governance, we cannot handle this planetary governance issue. That is why we should focus more on the planetary governance system. Earth jurisprudence, more than human. That is the right topic that we should tackle. We should have the Earth level governance. We should have the planetary level governance. Currently, it is only academic discussion, but that should be our reality. That should come into our daily lives. If we do not want to lose something precious, if we really want to tackle this issue, the planetary governance is something that we must have. After the 75 years of the launch of the UN, and I've been engaged in various task forces related to UN. But what I can tell you is this one. The global governance, the Earth's legal personality is something that we have been discussing for a long time. So I sincerely hope taking this opportunity under the topic of Earth jurisprudence more than human, we can contribute to have a solid discussion about the planetary governance. Our commission will pay attention to this conference, and we are going to consider how best we can contribute to better discussion about Earth jurisprudence. And in the next year, I sincerely hope that we can have a joint discussion between the Commission and People for Earth. I sincerely hope we can have this kind of a collaborative discussion. This is beyond ideology. This is the matter of our destiny. This is the matter of our very existence. This is a really critical issue. Once again, thank you very much for hosting this wonderful and meaningful forum, and thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Kim. and he delivered a really wonderful remarks, even though we gave him a short notice. Chairperson Kang will deliver the keynote so that we can open up this conference. I would like to invite Chairperson Kang of the People for Earth. Please welcome her with big hands.
I'd like to extend my warm welcome to all the distinguished guests who are joining us despite the cold weather. And we have also participants coming through the online channel. I'd like to extend my warm welcome to all the participants, Mr. Yoon and also Mr. Kim. They have shared wonderful congratulatory and opening remarks. And in these two remarks that we were able to learn the reasons why we are holding this conference. So my remarks are actually additional. One of the characteristics of this international conference is that the one law firm created the SON, Pro Bono SON, and also we supported the academic society on Earth Jurisprudence, which made possible for us to hold this international conference. So we're gathered here, various interdisciplinary scholars, and majority of them are specialized in law. So my keynote speech will be centered on law. While here standing at the podium, that I can see the majority of our participants and also the people, the core people in this group are legal professionals. As you know, the current legal system is elaborate and it has established foundation. It centers around human rights and rule of law. And this system is well reflected in the 1948, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And in the fight against fascism, the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights were established in 1948. But as the two gentlemen mentioned in the remarks, that we are now facing geological epoch. From 2000s, that scientists have coined a geological epoch as the term, and then we've been using this term to describe the self-destructing symptom. So the human being started changing the environment, which is quite self-destructive. In the discussion of Anthropocene debate, we have to think about when the debate started, and one of the conservative views when it comes to Anthropocene discussion is it's known as that it started in the mid-20th century, around the time of the successful nuclear test in 1945, and also antibiotics used for raising chickens. So against this backdrop, I think we culminated the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948 based on this background. So, however, in this process that we have made clear flaw in our relationship with the Earth. So the way that we have to go is going for generative energy and going away from the coal energy. And also we have to toward better science. In Korea, there is a common term known as climate tech. So we have to change the core law systems to reflect the new changes, and also we have to update the system to reflect our changes. So we are facing such difficulties. The reason is because also there is a tendency that the law accelerates the changes and the destruction of the environment. So in our law, that there are human rights law. So in this law, that the human rights and also the freedom of economy are secured, so that it has given so much discretion to corporations. So rather than upholding the individual human rights, that we are giving way more support to corporations, that we have achieved the economic growth, and on the dark side that we are facing the difficulties. So this is the right time that we have to think about the transition of our law system. And yesterday in Jeju Island, there were groups arguing for the protection of whales, dolphins. There are clearly gaps in our legal systems, so we have to think how we can interlink our current systems to achieve an environment where human beings and also the non-living beings can live together. The coordinator of UN Harmony with Nature program, Maria Sánchez, is unable to join us because of her father passed away. And then she delivered a congratulatory remarks yesterday. And then UN Harmony with Nature program has done a wonderful role in supporting the environment. And according to Maria, more than 40 countries are working to update their legal systems. And there are many revisions going on to update their legal systems. So 40, I mean, that's a wonderful number. Although in Jeju, that the one type of dolphin is specified in the discussion. However, there are many discussions going on and also legislation going on to include living beings beside humans to give rights. So in a broad perspective, the People for Earth upholds not only our relationship with the environment, but also we believe that we have to accordingly update our system. So I look forward to today that we will have wonderful discussions, interdisciplinary discussions. And UN mentioned that the Earth Jurisprudence is not only limited to certain areas, but the 8 areas were designated, including policy, spiritual sector, and education. Our current system upholds human rights based on humanities. However, that now we have to encompass all the living beings on Earth. People for Earth has delved into many areas specialized in Earth jurisprudence. From diverse sectors of science that we have come to realization who human beings are, and also that we have realized our evolution process, then now we are standing at a stage how we are going to transcend that knowledge to our future generations, and also that we have delved into how we are going to circular that knowledge with more people, and that's why we're going to hold a performance on the second day. Today, we are gathered to talk about Earth Jurisprudence, more than human. This is the time that we have to think about our law and also law governance system, and we need creativity because we need to make diverse approaches to meet in the middle. And I'd like to thank for the one law partners, especially for the Sun Pro Bono Center. And I'd like to thank the two gentlemen who made welcome and opening remarks, and also all the ladies and gentlemen who are joining us. I hope that today's conference will be a discussion session where we can seek the new future. Thank you.
네, 강금실 이사장님의 기조.
Thank you very much, Chairperson Kang, and she talked about the global climate crisis, and we should go beyond the human community, and the planetary system should be taken into consideration. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Mr. Yoon, and also I'd like to thank Chairperson Kim Sang-yeop of the Carbon Neutrality Commission, and also I would like to thank Chairperson Kang Kumsil, who is the chair of the People for Earth. Thank you very much. Please give big hands to three of them once again. Now we're gonna move on to the session number 1, Earth Jurisprudence for the lawyers. The moderator will be Mr. Park Jun-woo, who is the attorney at the One Law Partners. Good morning. I am Park Jun-woo, and I'm working for the ESG Center for the One Law Partners, and I'm the moderator for this session number 1. When I take a look at the weather forecast, there will be the first snow in Seoul. So, to preserve this beautiful planet, I am the moderator for this wonderful session. Now let me introduce the topic for this session number 1. The session number 1 is Earth Jurisprudence for the lawyers. The Pro Bono Center, Sun, and People for Earth have been conducting the lecture on the Earth Jurisprudence, and we can think about how we have developed the studies about the Earth Jurisprudence, and based on the Earth Jurisprudence, how we can develop the ESG activities and the legal litigations in South Korea. We have 4 speakers for today. The first session is Attorney Lee Yu-jung, and she's been the director for the Pro Bono Center Sun, and her topic is the Earth Jurisprudence lecture, how it has been conducted. She's been the expert for the gender-related laws, and she's been the expert for the ESG based on expertise. And she is now reading the Human Rights Consultation for the Seoul City. And next, we have attorney Jung Hae-jin, and she's been working as a reporter for 15 years. She graduated from the Kangwon University, and she worked for the Suwon and the Seoul Court, and she is now working as an attorney. She is the lead for the Earth Law Center, and she has been hosting our Earth Jurisprudence lecture. The third speaker is Attorney Lee Young-ju. She's going to tell us about the ESG and triple bottom line, and she is a partner for the ESG Center of the One Law Partners. She is an expert in ESG topic. The carbon tax and the carbon trading is her area of expertise, and she's really active in governance. Last but not least, Professor Lee Jae-hong from the Ihwa Women's University will make a presentation about the climate litigation and Earth jurisprudence. Mr. Lee has been working for a long time for the Korean military services, and now starting from 2003, she's been teaching constitutional theories and the constitutional practices, and he is one of the best expert in constitutional studies. Now, following the agenda, I'd like to invite Ms. Lee to the stage. Please welcome Ms. Lee. Good morning, I'm Joun. I'm working for the One Law Partners and I am the director of the Pro Bono Center Sun. Let me tell you a little bit more about the Pro Bono Sun. And many of you know about the Pro Bono Center Sun, but probably some of you do not know about our Pro Bono Center. This has been established by the One Law Partners, and this was established in 2013. The Sun means doing something good to the society, and we serve to the society, and we enhance the society. That's why we call that as a Sun. And we have provided legal consultation, and you can see the list of the legal consultations about ecology and environment. For example, about the animal rights, and also for some of the cooperative and social ventures, and recycling labs, Greenpeace, and EcoEye, and these are our partners. And we have provided legal consultations for these organizations. And these are some of the events we hosted focusing on ecological issues. Especially, we had lots of events in collaboration with the People for Earth. The topic is animal rights, the resource recycling, climate change, climate crisis. These are the key topics that we covered in our conferences. Pro Bono Sun had this kind of event. The One Law Partners is hosting the Earth Day campaign every year, and they are doing lots of activities to protect the Earth. And sometimes they give the gift and the award. So Pro Bono Sun and One Law Partners have been working on some of the voluntary activities, for example, like cleaning up the shore and cleaning up some of the waste. Today, I would like to tell you about the progress about the Earth Jurisprudence lecture. Starting from 2015, and up until this year, for the last 9 years, we have provided Earth Jurisprudence lecture, and I would say this is the most important activities of the Pro Bono Sun. And let me tell you how this was initiated. This can be a little bit personal. And Minister Kang was studying at the Catholic University, and she talked with some of the female attorneys, and she created a small study group. That was in the early 2013, and I was one of the small study group, and we studied about the ecofeminism, and we read the books, The Spring of Silence, written by Rachel Carson. We studied about the planetary concept and ecological concept. That was really difficult to understand at the time, and how we can put that kind of difficult notion to the legal framework. I thought at the time it was impossible. Then Minister Kang told us that we should study this and put this kind of ecological concept into the legal framework. So we created a small organization, and People for Earth was started in 2015. And since then we have provided lectures on the Earth Jurisprudence just like this. We have 4 topics in every year, and we provide lectures regarding Earth Jurisprudence. you can see energy policy, animal law, animal rights, and the climate change. In 2017 and 2019, the finest nuclear power generation, the rights of the animal, and Earth jurisprudence were the key topics. In 2018, the Earth jurisprudence came into being in earnest. In 2019 and 2020, we started to have discussion in depth about the Earth jurisprudence. We collected the cases about the Earth jurisprudence and how it was originated, and we discussed a lot about the Anthropocene starting from 2019. In 2021 and 2022, you can see some of the topics. We get fundamentally into human rights, ethics, sustainability. These are the keywords for our studies in 2021 and 2022. And we started to discuss how we can put that ecological and the Earth jurisprudence concept into our legal practice and legal actions. This is the topic for the Earth Jurisprudence lecture, and we have introduced the decisions and the rulings from many other countries. And when we have the rulings from the court about the Earth jurisprudence, they can be a really good evidence for us to take a look at. And we can find some of the court rulings regarding Earth jurisprudence. We started as a conceptual study group, but now we are putting that concept into our practice. And we are studying about the human rights planetary concept, and we are studying a lot about the Earth jurisprudence, how we can put the Earth jurisprudence into our litigation, and when we are making the law, and when we are discussing and making a process about the legal activities. Initially, we had only 30 to 40 participants. However, in 2023, 240 people applied, and we had 4 lectures in average per lecture. We have around 150 participants. We have more and more people coming in as we had an online lecture, and I believe actually the audience was much bigger than 150. This is pro bono activities. Not just the lawyers, students, teachers, and many other people are joining these lectures because these lectures are provided for free. And I can say there are growing interest about the Earth jurisprudence right now. Then what can be the meaning and implication of the Earth jurisprudence? I know that many people will talk more about the Earth jurisprudence. Earth jurisprudence is based on the concept human belongs to a bigger community, and the well-being of the each and every community member is really important. So I would say Earth jurisprudence is like a philosophy about the legal approach. And this is about the governance. And thanks to a book which was published in 2016, we started to have the discussion about the Earth jurisprudence. And after that, we started the lecture on the Earth jurisprudence. And that's a really remarkable achievement. Pro Bono Sun and the People for Earth have been working really hard for these lectures, and I feel so proud about these achievements we made, and I am so proud that I am the member of this community. The legal system is based on the human-centered approach. This one is based on the nation's power or the nation's authority. This is human-centered again. This has lots of the limitation when we are handling ecological issues. There is no room for non-human beings, non-human creatures. And ecological damage is calculated based on economic terms. That's an issue. The damage is calculated based on the ecological terms. So non-human creatures' damage cannot be calculated and cannot be measured within the existing legal framework. It is really obscure to whom should we ask for the responsibility? It can be nation actor, it can be a group, it can be something else. Then how about the rights of the non-human creatures? Then how about the rights for the community? Then how about the rights of the nature? That have been ignored, and that was really almost impossible to be protected in the existing legal framework. That is why we had a lecture on the Earth Jurisprudence. We underline the importance to the shift to climate transition and ecological civilization. And we had a multidisciplinary approach from the philosophy, ethical studies, science, economics, and the politics. We have introduced the rulings from international courts. So we studied a lot about the implications about the Earth jurisprudence. We also had some discussion to build the expert group about animal rights, social venture, and climate technology. And we had a great discussion with the companies which can think more about ESG management. In 2020, the youth climate litigation was launched in 2020, not just Pro Bono Sun and other groups were working together. The young people made an appeal against the national government. It is going against the constitution when the national government abolished its carbon reduction goal because it is damaging the rights about the young people. They want to live in the clean future and they want to lead the healthy lives. However, when the government is abandoning their carbon reduction policy, it can damage the future rights of the young people. And this one is pending in the Constitutional Court. In 2021, in the federal government of the Germany, there was a really wonderful ruling that was made. And there is a climate change act from the Germany, and they had the carbon reduction goal, and there is a annual reduction target. However, the Constitutional Court ruled that goal is not good enough. And to make the carbon neutral society, the goal should be more ambitious. The ruling was made by the German Federal Court. The government should protect the future generation, otherwise it can be the infringement of the fundamental human rights. And I believe this ruling will have some implication to the constitutional ruling that's going to be made in South Korea. Also, we supported the activities of the young people. A Korean large company talked about the green management. However, they supported new coal power plant. And the young activists said this is going against their company campaign. They drew some paintings on the logo of the company and they were sued by the company. And the court rejected this kind of litigation that has been initiated by the company, and the young activists were fined for painting on the logo about the company. However, they are going against the ruling and they are making some protest activities. And constitutional appeal was made about climate disclosure that was initiated by Greenpeace. Sustainability and sustainable development is really important, and to make it happen, companies should disclose their sustainable activities and their ESG activities. That is a mandate. That is climate disclosure. However, the Korean government were really passive about this climate disclosure, so another constitutional appeal was raised. However, this one was rejected. However, I believe this was really meaningful appeal. And there were many litigations related to climate change. We can find out some of the legal issues related to climate change, and we can potentially change the perception of the stakeholders and the general citizens. And possibly that kind of appeal can have some implications to legislation and court rulings. This kind of positive cycle can be made. So I would say the litigations we made can be really meaningful. And the court ruling is really important because that is a binding decision. Now let me tell you a little bit more about the feminist jurisprudence. This is my major area. I majored in the feminist jurisprudence in 2010. In 2010, many people do not know about the concept of gender in Korea. The voting rights for female was given only in 1890. It's just about 150 years ago. The female rights was recognized in just about 100 years ago in the US. We didn't talk about the rights for the female for a long time. However, the achievement was really significant. Still, there are many women and girls who risk their life just to go to school. Still, the feminist jurisprudence are now focusing on their concept and how they can put the feminist concept into legislation and legal process. And another key area is how to represent the marginalized female on the legal discussion. And that is why litigations should be made. And there can be some active, and after that, some of the achievement can be made. As you can see, for example, some rules were changed, some policy were changed because of the litigation raised by the feminist jurisprudence. Just about 20 years ago, not many people know about this concept. However, thanks to the activists from the feminist jurisprudence, many things have changed. And this kind of approach can be something that we can learn from the Earth Jurisprudence. That's why we should make more litigations. Earth Jurisprudence is asking for the fundamental shift in the legal system. There are lots of scientific development, including AI, and now we are going through the fundamental changes in climate and science and society. That is why we need fundamental change in the legal system. The Earth Jurisprudence should pay more attention to non-human creatures that have been marginalized in the existing legal system. We should think more how we should build a new legal system. And I'm pinning high expectation how Earth Jurisprudence can contribute for the future legal system transformation. I would like to thank all those members who are working for this transformation. I would like to thank all the members of the People for Earth and all the members of the Pro Bono Center Sun. Thank you very much.
네, 수고해주신 이유정.
Once again, please give a big round of applause to Lawyer Lee. Thank you very much for your presentation, and especially, it's remarkable that there are hundreds of people are now joining our study on Earth Prudence, which is a great indication of increasing interest in Earth Jurisprudence. I asked her to manage her time in 20 minutes, and then she managed the time. And now I'd like to welcome the next speaker, Ms. Haejin Jung. Nice to meet you. I'm in charge of Earth Center at the People for Earth. I was in charge of the administration work, but now actually I'm promoted to the center head, but actually my role is not that big. Today I'd like to talk about how the Earth prudence has been developed in Korea. While operating our academic, there have been many things that we were able to learn through our discussions. So we have been able to think about how we have to continue to develop our discussions. So these are the contents of our discussions today that I'm going to talk about the birth and the development of Earth Jurisprudence, germination of Earth Jurisprudence discussion in South Korea, and I'll also share the achievements of our academic and network so far. I'm sure that you're familiar with this concept. The Earth Jurisprudence was envisioned by Professor Thomas Berry. In 2001, that he said the Earth needs a new jurisprudence. He wrote a short essay about the origins of rights. And then that was the beginning of the term Earth Jurisprudence started being used popularly. And the lawyer, Kamakaoligan from South Africa, he happened to learn from Professor Thomas Berry, and he was working as a lawyer in South Africa. And while listening to the lecture by Thomas Berry, he had a chance to widen his understanding, and then he was greatly influenced by Thomas Berry, and he wrote White Law. The legal practice, the person put the knowledge of Earth prudence first time as Wild Law. So the first version was published in 2002, and a revision was published again, and also it greatly influenced the Ecuador's constitution. And with this development, UN started dealing with nature rights, kicking off the organization UN Harmony with Nature in 2009. So the term was coined in 2001, and while going through the development in 2000s, the concept has been now flourished. And now I'd like to talk about how the discussions in Korea has been developed. And when it comes to the Earth jurisprudence in Korea, that we must talk about Madam Kang. In 2015, that we started a small organization, actually a small group of people, with the Minister Kang and the lawyers gathered together, and Professor Park Tae-yeon. We started reading the book White Law, written by Mr. Cullinan, and then we launched the group People for Earth, and also we created a lecture course to learn about the teaching of Thomas Berry in 2016. Starting from 2015, that we started studying White Law, and in 2016 we published a translated version. I don't know if you can see this. The title is the White Law, and the subtitle is a manifesto for Earth Jurisprudence, and this is the first translated version of Earth Jurisprudence. And since then, we've been studying related books, and then one of that is the ecology of law. So, physicist and the law professor had discussions on the ecology. You might think that there are great distances between the physicist and the law professor, but they discussed that there should be wider discussion, and we also published a translated version. So while translating these two major books, we came to the point that we'd like to summarize all the knowledge that we had accumulated. That was the point that the theory was not enough, developed enough. However, that our knowledge was good enough to invite general audiences to be better acquainted with the concept of Earth jurisprudence. So the people who were in our group, we started writing each one chapter by one person. So our book, 지구를 위한 법학 in Korean, or Earth Jurisprudence in English, was the first one in Korea. So the subtitle is the Earth's Century, Going Beyond Human Centrism. The English title is Earth Jurisprudence. However, in Korean, in direct translation, will be the jurisprudence for the Earth. So there are three major chapters. The first part is explaining about the Earth jurisprudence. So the three chapters are dedicated to the introduction. And the second chapter is about the changes of Earth law and international society. In the second chapter that we discuss about the Earth jurisprudence and the role of UN and international civil society. And also in the third and the last chapter that we dealt with the Constitution and Earth jurisprudence. The reason is because and also another one was economics. The reason is because the writers who were in charge of the third chapter majored in constitutions and the economy. To publish the book, that we held 10 times of seminars, and before that we had shared our opinions because we read the previous two books together. So we did our best to help the Korean audiences to have interest in Earth jurisprudence. And I'm sure that you also have received this book. While I was preparing for this presentation, that I didn't know that this book would be complete by this time. The publisher name is 문학과 지성사, and we decided to publish one book every year. As you can see, that we are talking about biocracy and the situations in Korea, which has great relevance to the theme that we're talking about today. So this is more about the theses, more about academical perspective. So now I'd like to talk about the Google Scholar. So if you look up Earth jurisprudence, that you see different titles, the human rights and Earth jurisprudence, going beyond human, that's the first title. And these are the papers published by the people who are studying at in our group. And the number of the papers have grown to over 30, 40. And also, Lawyer Lee introduced our study. Starting from 2019, that we have been conducting this class 4 or 5 times a year. Initially, we talked about environmental law, but mostly that we come up with the topics that grab the public attention. And it's been 5 years. So our approach is that we set the subject as Earth Jurisprudence, but the topics are decided based on the subject that have great public's interest. And as Lawyer Lee mentioned, the attendance for this class have exceeded hundreds. I share the academic efforts of People for Earth, and now I'd like to talk about how we are expanding our network. This conference is hosted with the UN Harmony with Nature. As I mentioned briefly, UN launched this program in 2009, and their role is basically celebrating the Earth Day on April 22nd, and they hold various dialogues by inviting speakers from different sectors. And at the end of the year, they publish annual reports, including the dialogue, which take place near the Earth Day. And People for Earth was included in 2019-2020 report introducing Korean situation. As Madam Kang mentioned, that about 40 countries around the world are now upholding the environmental rights by upgrading their constitutions and also by providing education to students. So while working closely with Harmony with Nature, that we have expanded our network with bigger audiences around the world. And in relation to the Earth Jurisprudence, that we're also making diverse efforts. So the first book on the left is Silent Crime, Ecocide. This book is about ecocide and the human rights. Since Earth Jurisprudence is actively flourishing in Latin America, that we also held a conference with the topic of Latin America. And as you can see on the right side, various experts from the world, from different sectors, are joining together to have discussions. And as Minister Kang mentioned, that in Jeju Island, the Ecological Corporation has been actively discussed to protect dolphins. And in this process, our discussion made at the People for Earth are reflected. So these are major achievements. Previously, I showed you how many papers are looked up in Google Scholar in Korean, but here I'd like to show you how many papers are published with the theme of Earth Jurisprudence. But as you can see, the number is great, which is quite different from Korean situation, because in Korea the discussion is at an infant stage. So we have built some cases, so we have to continue to contribute to the development of Earth jurisprudence. Currently, that we have only few researchers who are dedicated to Earth jurisprudence. We have published translated books. We read the books together. However, only one professor is responsible for these book reading process. And since we have limited number of researchers dedicated to Earth jurisprudence, that our discussion is more about learning about the concept of Earth jurisprudence and what kind of researches are going on around the world. So now we have to grow to find ways how we can apply this concept into Korean situation. We are in the process of discussing. We don't have yet established discussions. So through active discussion that we have to make foundation so that we can create a legislative and successful litigation case based on Korean-style jurisprudence system. With these points keeping in mind, that we'd like to have active discussions in the international conference, and I'd like to wrap up my presentation. Thank you. Ms. Chung, Center Head of the Academic Society on Earth Jurisprudence, thank you so much. So through her presentation, that we were able to learn how Earth Jurisprudence was born and what achievement that the Academic Society has achieved and the directions that we have to go toward. The Academic Society on Earth Jurisprudence started as a small book club, but now that they are a matured group that published their own book, and also they are holding this international conference. And also she said that there are limitations, obstacles. There are very limited researcher pool in Korea. So I hope that the more people can show their interest in Earth jurisprudence. Thank you.
Third, we have our attorney Young-Ju Lee. Please welcome her with big hands. Good morning. I'm Lee Young-Ju, who is working for the One Law Partners, and I'm working for the ESG Center located in One Law Partners. So this is the meaningful occasion, that 10th anniversary of the Pro Bono Sun. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Two wonderful speakers made wonderful remarks. I sometimes listen to the Earth Jurisprudence lectures, and I've been engaged in lots of activities, and I'm wondering myself whether I am on the right tide and I am following the topic or not. But listening to the presentations, I can now understand where I stand and where I was, and what was the trend about the discussion about the Earth Jurisprudence in South Korea. That was really meaningful for me. The topic is the Earth Jurisprudence, ESG, and triple bottom line. Earth Jurisprudence is a philosophical transformation, but ESG is a very realistic concept. It's more like a capitalistic concept rather than the philosophical concept. It can be a kind of paradox, but what kind of message can I deliver? And I was talking to myself. And ESG is covering the very wide area of the business activities. So I wanted to find out how best I can explain and what can be the common factors between the ESG and Earth Jurisprudence. So, I would like to tell you about the basic concept about the ESG, and especially focusing on the E, environmental factors out of ESG. And that is something that I want to do today. As you can see here, many people talk about ESG, and now many people ask me about ESG because in the last 2 to 3 years, people's awareness about ESG has gone up significantly. Many people do know about the concept about ESG itself. As you can see, this is the acronym for the environmental social governance. In a nutshell, we can call that sustainable goal. In the Basic Act for the Sustainable Law, it is defining do not sacrifice the needs of the current generation in order to meet the needs of the future generation. Rather, we should work to achieve the harmony and balance without wasting the resources or deteriorating the conditions of the economy, society, and environment. And I've been working with many of the other organizations to deliver lecture about ESG. Many people ask me, how can you define ESG in a single word? Let me put it this way. Let's say you make an investment to an organization or to a company. You make investment, be it $100 or $1,000. In the past, you get the information financially this company was solid or not. How was their sales performance? Are they good on credit or not? You can get that kind of financial statement or the balance sheet. Those information is provided to you, and based on that financial information, you make a decision whether the company is really good or not. However, now in the era of ESG, now we can have another piece of information in addition to the financial statement. For the last 5 to 10 years, yes, there are financial information and there is a prediction for the next 5 to 10 years, financially. But in addition to it, when it comes to environment and the human rights, the company is likely to get into some kind of trouble or not. That is something that we should know. So there should be another KPI for the company. So ESG can be another indicator for the prediction about the value of the company. So I would say ESG is a non-financial indicator. However, it's really critical. The US and the EU have been initiating the concept about ESG activities. Regarding ESG, the key topic is information disclosure. We call that as a environmental disclosure. A company should disclose enough information about its ecological and environmental activities. That is a key topic in the US and the EU. The capital market is mandating a company to disclose a certain set of information. That's really important, and there is a heated debate about it. If we want to make some fundamental changes about the behavior, the disclosure mandate should be changed. And sometimes people are questioning, do you really think that changing the disclosure mandate will change the behavior of a company? Yes, partially, because when you are giving the mandate for the disclosure, sometimes it can fundamentally change the behavior or the corporate activities of a certain company. You can see the TCFD disclosure. This is a kind of the de facto standard for environmental disclosure. You can see governance, strategy, risk management, and metrics and the targets. Based on this, The TCFD is mandating the company to disclose the information about environmental risk. And also you can check whether the board members clearly understand the environmental risk or they are taking some environmental actions. You can ask those questions, and based on your questions, the board should come up with this kind of disclosure. TCFD is a really important indicator. For example, in the US, in the EU, and even in the IFRS, TCFD has been considered for a long time. In Korea, actually this has not been mandated yet. However, KRX and the ESG are now trying to refer to TCFD for the future mandate. Now let me tell you about the key changes about the environmental disclosure. You heard about IFRS. IFRS is a standard-making organization about the global accountings and the disclosure. They have IFRS S2 climate-related disclosure. This has been mandated starting from this June. When Korean companies are trying to come up with the K gap for the financial statement, which is a little bit different from the IFRS, and we have the Korean gap. But when you are creating the financial statement based on the K gap, internationally, it is a rule to follow the rules mandated by IFRS. Now IFRS is asking for the S2 climate-related disclosure. So IFRS already published this kind of rule, and that will have a huge implication across the world. IFRS S2 talks about the carbon reduction and carbon emission. And there is a scope 1, 2, and 3. Scope 1 and 2 are related directly or indirectly to the company. And scope 3, the S3, is covering the entire life cycle, including their partners and the supply chain. So I would say when they have the S1, 2, and 3, in that case, it's gonna cover the climate change and the carbon emission track record across the company's activities. S1 is the general request, and S2 is the mandate related to climate change. And EU, they came up with the ESRS in July. So in Europe, in a nutshell, climate change, ecological impact, the resource usage, and the recycling, those 5 factors will be mandated so that the companies should disclose the information about the key 5 sectors. Along with the public disclosure, they should explain how those environmental activities will have impact to their financial gains. In the US, the SEC came up with the guideline in March, and they are going to confirm the guideline. According to SEC guideline, in the regular disclosure, companies will be mandated how their climate actions will have impact on their revenue and financial statement. So far, I've been telling you about the international trends. Of course, the timing will be different country by country. However, we can see the general trend. We still do not know how much impact there will be, but the trend is very clear. ISSB, US, EU, and those advanced countries are taking action so that the companies can clearly measure their environmental impact, and there has been lots of discussion on it, and there will be potential mandates to disclose their information related to their climate activities. So far, I've been telling you about the international activities, how the companies should come up with the information and how they should analyze the information and what kind of climate activities have been done. That kind of mandate will come into place. In the last September, there was another important step made. Beyond the climate impact to the corporate activities, TNFD initiative, which is covering the biodiversity, was now officially launched. TNFD is asking for the disclosure about natural resources. In the last September, they came up with a recommendation. The recommendation from the TNFD will be discussed in many other countries. The recommendation from the TNFD is not just talking about the climate change, it is talking about the natural resources as a whole. How the company activity will have an impact on the natural resources. What is the plan and what is the strategy? This is more like a planetary approach, and that recommendation was made in September. TCFD, as I told you, is now talking about the transitional risk and the physical risk coming out of the climate changes. When companies are making a transition, there must be some risks involved. That's the transitional risk. TNFD focus more on the, TCFD is talking about the climate change related physical risk and the transitional risk, and the TNFD is talking about the transitional risk about the natural resources itself. TCFD has discussion for the last few years, and then they finally had a contribution to IFRS. And after a few years of the discussion within the TNFD, and TNFD will contribute to some of the international mandate. Companies not only have to take care of the climate change, and they have the risk management and governance about the biodiversity. Probably they have to put that kind of information in their financial disclosure. TNFD talks about natural resources, and this can be related to Earth jurisprudence. However, we need to have a further discussion and further study what can be the linkage between the TNFD's natural resources and the Earth jurisprudence. Finally, we can find out some kind of alignment between the two sectors. So far, I've been telling you about the international trend. Now, let me get back to some of the domestic issues. Many efforts are being made within the country. Of course, not something tangible has not been made, but the Ministry of the Environment, the Commission for the Fair Trade, and the Commission for Financial Services are now discussing how we can put those rules into our practice. The Ministry of Environment is now trying to put a kind of the mandate so that companies can disclose their climate-related activities. However, there has been lots of criticism. Company-level information cannot be fully disclosed. However, the Ministry of Environment is trying to follow the global standard, and probably they will come up with better recommendation. I can tell you the Ministry of Environment in South Korea is now actively listening to the international trend. ESG can be a bottleneck for the company's activities. However, this can be opportunity at the same time. Many people talk about the basic legal framework for the ESG. This has been launched by the National Assembly in September this year. ESG should cover environmental human rights, and when companies are revealing the information, they should reveal and disclose meaningful information that can be verifiable and measurable. The National Assembly is now trying to come up with who should be responsible and what is the content and what is the standard and how it can be verified. So they are trying to build an ecosystem where ESG can be fully represented in the company information and that can be fully measured and analyzed. And there is a Capital Market Act. Article 159 is the right clause related to company disclosure. I told you there was a constitutional appeal that was rejected. This is the Article 159 from the item 1 to 5. And what are the key items that should be disclosed by the company? However, even though climate disclosure is really important, the Article 159 is not covering any item relevant to climate change and ecological activities. So many people are arguing that some items should be added relevant to ecological activities or the climate change. And there are some recommendations. For example, the Article 159 can be changed like this. For example, any activities related to environment, sociology, and the governance. And there is another recommendation presented by the lawmakers in South Korea, and we are now discussing how we can modify the Article 159. And also, there is a discussion that we can come up with a modification of the 159 and the details can be defined by the presidential decree. And there is another recommendation. For example, focusing more on the climate change. This can be the potential modification. Greenhouse gas emission reduction goal, climate change response plan should be within the company disclosure. If this recommendation is accepted, in that case, anybody can have access to this kind of climate-related information. And within the financial statement, you can see greenhouse gas emission reduction goal and climate change responses. Currently, we do not have this kind of information in the financial statement, but once we have these information, this will have significant implications across South Korea. When you take a look at the item 5 and 6, there is a term, the environmental strategy. And when environmental strategy is included within this item number 5, the board should explain what kind of climate responses they are taking, and they should explain that to shareholders. That's going to be a mandate. However, even though we have heated debate, the FSC, the Financial Services Commission, understand ESG should come into place. However, they delayed the plan for the implementation. We had the third round of the discussion. Probably the disclosure will be made after 2026, which means in Korea, yes, the disclosure may be a little bit delayed compared to other countries. This one is coming from the Fair Trade Commission. Greenwashing can be an issue. So to prevent greenwashing, the Fair Trade Commission is coming on with action. You should not deliver any misleading information about the greenwashing, and Fair Trade Commission came up with this kind of guideline in the September. And when you are using if this one is green or the eco-friendly, the company should be cautious about using those terminologies not to mislead any consumers when they are using the word like green or eco-friendly. I covered the international trends and domestic activities about the company's disclosure mandate. The link between ESG and Earth Jurisprudence might be very small. However, as there is a international transformation and international shift about the ESG and Earth jurisprudence, I can say the corporate citizens can now focus more on the climate responses and biodiversities. And when they have the mandate about those areas, that can be really meaningful. And that is why I'm telling you ESG can be linked with the Earth jurisprudence because the companies can be the member of this Earth community. That's it from me. Thank you very much. Please give big hands. Thank you. Ms. Lee, thank you very much. She talked about the basic concept about the ESG and the disclosure within Korea and outside of Korea. And thank you very much for the wonderful insights.
이재용 교수님의 발제 듣도록
Now I'd like to welcome Professor Lee Jae-hong. He is the last presenter of the first session.
네 번째
My name is Lee Jae-hong. It gives me a great pleasure to present my presentation to you on this wonderful occasion. Today, I'd like to talk about the climate litigation and earth law, Earth jurisprudence. We are given only 20 minutes, so but my topic is very heavy, so I don't think I can cover everything here, but I'd like to today focus on the constitutional petition for the carbon neutrality basic law. I prepare this picture. I don't know if you're familiar with this photo, that there is a hint. If you look at the right corner, that you see this flag. And this is the Federal Constitutional Court in Germany. Korean Constitutional Court and also the German counterparts, that they meet every 2 years. And last year we had the representatives from the Constitutional Court from Germany. And then one of the 3 topics was the climate litigation. So they share the results, and then they emphasized that one of the judges emphasized that we stick to the existing verdict. But if you look at the letter of the judge, the ruling, that the verdict, the content itself was quite creative. However, he emphasized again and again that he stick to the existing constitution, because it is important that we can't go too far from the legal jurisprudence. And of course, it's nice that we can tell or appeal to the judges that this is a really good point, that we have to embrace environment. However, that the judges, they have to stick to their existing legal framework. So we have to remember that. So now I'd like to look at the target of the constitutional appeal of the carbon neutrality basic. So here, the subject of the article, which is Art 7, is about the. There are 2 parts. There are targets set by the government about mitigating the CO2 by 2030. However, there is lack of reduction target from 2031 to 2050. First of all, I'd like to talk about the first one, about the reduction of CO2 by 2030. And for this issue, I'd like to talk about the 3 types of state intervention in fundamental rights. You see that the thick line is the area of basic right protection, and there are 3 concepts prohibition, formation, and protection. So the limitation and protection are major areas to consider here in terms of human rights. These are the articles related to the environmental law. And I'd like to talk about the limitations, especially the environmental rights limitations. These are the one of the representing cases. The first one is setting up the safety bar in the prison. When we think about the prison, then safety bars are placed in the prison already. However, the prisoners are complaining that the safety bars are too narrow, so it's difficult to enjoy the light or ventilation and heating. So if we compare before and after, that you can see that the freedom or the basic human rights are infringed. And in this case, there is a prohibition of excessive restriction. And also, in terms of the environmental law, that I'd like to talk about the emission reduction target by 2030. So this can be gone with the same article, which is Article 35, Paragraph 1. The reason I divide the limitation and protection is based on two important legal frameworks. If it is the limitation of a basic right, then it is subject to the provision of excessive restriction. However, if it's too much protected, then the prohibition of deficient protection should be applied. For the question number 1, for the 2030 reduction target, we have to think it's whether the basic human rights are limited or not. And subject number 2 is the legislative absence or inefficiency. To look at this, that we need to know the concept, whether this matter is subject to the true legislative inaction or defective legislation inaction. One of the cases is the noise, and this is a real case. And then this one was appealed by a study room owner. He opened his business, and then he complained that there is water flowing sound on the ceiling. And then he looked up the related laws. However, he realized that these noise all indicated in the law are about the exterior noise. And he appealed to the Constitution and he complained why there is no noise standard generated by the building itself. And the argument too is why did the noise standard doesn't include various circumstances. So the first case is genuine legislative oversight, and the second argument is lack of legislation. This is also the same with the environmental law. For the CO2 reduction by 2030, there can be two arguments why CO2 reduction target is made until 2030, but there are no targets after 2030. The reason I'm asking you is because there is no right or wrong answer. And if you look at this picture, that there is a vase in the middle. However, if you see in a different angle, that you see two faces facing together. So there is no right answer in this appealing case. However, if you say that there is a one answer, then there will be a lot of arguments will be made. And this one is the study room case. The judges had two different opinions, 6-4. For example, that they argue if we consider from the picture that I showed, 6 people said this is the face and the 4 people said this is the face. So we can, for the first case of the study room, then we have to think about the constitutional, if there is a constitutional legislative mandate or if there is a legislative duty to interpret the Constitution. And in the in-text citation, then there are difficulties in interpretation. First one, in the case of genuine legislative inaction, in this case, legislative rejection or substantial lapse of time should be considered. However, in the second part, sluggish legislation, the prohibition of deficient protection should be applied. However, there are rare cases where the countries would do the least minimum appropriate and efficient measures. So whether it's the subject number 1 or 2, there were difficulties in this case, and also by learning these two cases, then we can apply this to the Earth Jurisprudence. In the book of The Idea of Justice, there is a term called the plurality of fair reasons. So in these difficult discussions, the discussants can come up with the only way or only answer. And he used an example of the Buddhist teaching, Amartya Sen. So here, what they argue is that the cooperation for mutual benefit between equal actors can be achieved through various sources, and especially in the relationship between parents and the children, there are different responsibilities. For example, if children are in danger, that the parents have higher responsibility. And one of the related arguments can be referred from Hans Jonas. And he said that I'm responsible for resolving situations that are within my power, even if I didn't cause them. So by reading this book, that we can learn that even though the leader earned a coup, he has to use his power for his people. So if we look at this in a perspective of time, that we can consider the present decision, which can affect to the future decisions. So if we combine the generations, then we can make the logic current generations and the future generations. So if I summarize everything what I said in one sentence, with great power, there must also come great responsibility. Do you know who said that? Actually, this is not from Hans Johansson. This came from Spider-Man. Spider-Man said that, so even 5 or 6-year-old know the concept, with great power comes great responsibility. So the theory came from Hans Jonas. It's not only their responsibility but ethical responsibility. So what I'm trying to say is, if you use ethical responsibility as a tool to appeal to judge, then the judges would not hear you. So our role is now taking the ethical messages and interpret that into legal constitutions, legal frameworks. There are existing basic rights, which is that our right to live in a stable and climate. So that is indicated in Article 35, Paragraph 1. However, if we apply this to the nature or to the future generations, and then if we say that if the country has the constitutional responsibility to protect the future generations, then the decision can be a little bit tricky. And this should be interpreted as the care and the responsibility. So when we approach the Constitution, we have to approach with the concept of care, because the Constitution also mandates the obligations to protect the children, fetuses, and posterity, and life in this life in the stable climate of nature. So these are the important articles that we have to refer to. So if we go to the court case, then the scale and the intensity of judgment should be considered. So if we choose true legislative inaction, then the standard of the judgment or the ruling should be whether it is the protected too much or there is deficiency of protection. And in terms of deficiency of protection, also we have to think about how much is deficient. Since we have in the position of winning the case, that we will argue for intensity of scrutiny. We will argue for the intensifying the scrutiny. In terms of increasing the level of scrutiny, that we can argue with four theories. The basis can be, we can argue that there are a number of four cases. The more severe the restriction, the less socially relevant the realization of the right. That is number one. And number two is the less predictive judgment required by the legislator, the more specialized the judiciary is. And also, there are four the level of scrutiny. However, for the climate change litigation, it's difficult to argue for the heightened scrutiny related to number 2 and number 3. So we'd like to focus on 4, which is that care and consideration. So the judiciary is specialized in the area of protecting minorities and disadvantages, and the legislation doesn't necessarily protect the marginalized people. However, the Constitution is at the standing at the point where they have to protect the minorities and disadvantages. So this Constitution should be able to protect the marginalized people. And in that context, we can argue that the Earth Jurisprudence is part of such care and protection. And the existing case argues that the higher the natural connection to the realization of the right, the more intense the review should be. So in this case, that we can argue that the humans alone cannot realize environmental rights without climate environment. So I'd like to now wrap up my presentation. We're not here arguing, we're not writing an essay here. We are basically appealing to the Constitutional Court. So we need to appeal. We need to argue based on the legal jurisprudence, the existing jurisprudence. So we need to exactly where what point that we have to argue. And we are standing at a position where we have to go beyond the existing constitutional jurisprudence. So again, that we have to translate our language to the jurisprudence language. So in this regard, we have to argue that the caring and compassion are constitutional duty. So we can increase the possibility of winning in terms of increased scrutiny for care and consideration cases. So it will be a good approach for us to find a possibility for winning the constitutional case. Thank you. Please give a big round of applause to Professor Lee. And it was a difficult constitutional presentation. However, he was able to put it into perspective so that we can learn about the Constitution. So we have come to the end of the first session. After the first session, that we're going to have lunch, and we'll be back with the chapter 2. Thank you.